Hello and welcome viewers. In this series we are learning about PCP and Grafana that basically used for to capture Linux performance related data. I have prepared two videos prior to this. The first one which I prepared is about the PCP, what is PCP, and I have also showed you how to install PCP. There are some configuration, and we have also some command line utility. With that we can capture performance related data. And in my second video I have showed how to install Grafana dashboard, and with that how to capture performance related data from Linux. And we basically used Redis data source. With that we capture the information. And if I go to my web browser here, this is the dashboard it looks like, right? And I have added performance copilot data source. And in this video I'm going to discuss two things. The first thing, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add two additional node in this metric server. This server is going to act as a centralized server from where I'm going to capture performance data from the client node, and also we can be able to analyze it. So there are two client node I am running. These are basically RHEL node. Okay, so let's push this here, RHEL node. And now if you did not go through my two previous video, please go through them, because that would going to be helpful in order to understand better about PCP and Grafana. Right, so first thing, what we need to ensure, the service pmcd pmlogger Grafana server. These three services supposed to be running on the master node, or the centralized server, the metric centralized server. So pmcd is running, pmlogger is running, and Grafana service is also running. Excellent. So now what I have to do is, if I go inside this location, pcbar log pcp pmlogger, and do ls-l, I see only this server information, not the other two. So first thing, what I'm going to do, I'm going to I'm going to install few additional packages on the client node, which is PCP, and the other one is PCP, sorry, yum install PCP system tools. Let's just install this package on both the client nodes. Okay, so it is installing. Okay, so meanwhile it is installing. Okay, so let's now, once the package is installed, we need to start few service, which is, let's do enable pmcd now and pmlogger. So basically when we enable and do a minus minus, now it enable and start the service simultaneously. Okay, so we have started the service and we have one configuration file and we need to make some entries in there. Let's just go inside that file and make an entry. It is still trying to start it. Okay, so there is some issue. That service PM logger is unable to start for some reason. I think this is also going to fail. Okay, so on node 1 now it is started, it seems. So let's just check the status. PM logger. Cool, so it is started. On node 2 it seems it failed. Let's check the status. Yeah, so it didn't start. Let's just try to start again. Okay, so looks like this time it started. Let's check the status. Alright, so it is started. So what we have to do, we'll have to make one change in the configuration file, and let's just clear the screen and run this command. So this is basically the IP of this system matrix node 1, and I'm adding an entry in this configuration file. Similarly, I need to add this on the other server and change the IP, which is 143 in this server. And now again I have to restart the service. PM cd PM logger. Let's just run this in here. Okay, so meanwhile it started the service on the client system. We can go to the master one, which is this one, and we also have to make one change on the master server, which is pcp PM logger control.d, and inside this currently I have only one file, local. I need to create one more file, and the file is going to be remote under this location, and this is the IP, and I'm giving a name RHEL6. You can name anything, right? So let's just edit this file, change the IP to 43 here, and again the name I'm just going to say as RHEL7. Okay, so now let's check the client system. Both the server services restarted, and now I need to restart this service on the master. So let's clear the screen and start the service. Okay, so it got started, and if I now look for the status, everything is running. Excellent. So now what I'm going to do, if I go to my Grafana dashboard here and go for manage and open up the PCP dashboard, I see the metrics, the performance metrics from the server. It is feeding in, and here in drop down I don't see those two servers. It is still the metrics server, and I don't see the other two servers which I have added. So what I have to do in order to see that in the Grafana dashboard, I need to restart the Grafana service as well, because I did not restart the Grafana service. Grafana server. Yeah, so if I now go to my dashboard, refresh it, and if I okay, so it is still not feeding in. Let's just try to figure out. Okay, so let me clear the screen, and first thing what I'm going to check, PCP and PM logger, and inside this I can see two new servers added. That looks good from the PCP end, but for the Grafana I still don't see it. We have one more service which is PM proxy. Let's just try restart that service and try to okay, so now it got refreshed. I still don't see it. Let me log out, sign out, admin, and go to my dashboard. It's trying to okay, so one node came up, matrix node 2, but matrix node 1 still doesn't show up, so probably I'll have to wait for some time and refresh. Yeah, so now it showed up in my Grafana dashboard. So if I now go to the other service, which is matrix node, you can see some dots here because it just added right 1 minute ago. So the data is still needs to feed in the Grafana, and it is in the process. I changed the timeout for 5 seconds, and it is refreshing in every 5 seconds, and the timeout is for 5 minutes, sorry. Okay, so that's how we can add an additional client node, and from the Grafana dashboard you would be able to monitor. This is going to be our centralized Grafana dashboard. Right, so this is one thing, and the second thing which I was supposed to show you is to add additional data source. Currently I have if I go to the Grafana, this is basically PCP Redis data source, right? And if I go to the manage, I can see there are other data source as well, which is PCP vector container overview and PCP bpftrace. But if I click on this, I do not see the data, right? And similarly, if I go for bpftrace, I still don't see anything here for bpftrace. That means it did not install properly, or it did not configure. So we need to go through few additional steps to make this working. So what we have to do is, let's go to the terminal, clear the screen, and install this package. This is for bpftrace, and this only needs to install on the matrix centralized server, not on the client. Let's just pause the video because this is going to take some time. We have like 28 packages to install. Okay, so the bpftrace packages are now installed. The next thing what we need to do is go to this location, PM logger, PM not this one. Let me see, I always confused. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so it is basically var leave PCP, not var log. Okay, so inside that location we have this directory, and I should be able to have bpftrace, And inside this bpftrace I see one binary called install. Let's just run that. Okay, so that's done, and there is one file. This is a configuration file. By default it allows every users to have root rights. If you would like to disable it, you can disable it here. Right, so we are pretty much good with the bpftrace. So now what I'm going to do, probably going to restart the Grafana service. Right, and let's go to dashboard. And now I already have those data source. In case you do not have those data source, you just have to go to data source here, click on add data source. I install bpftrace, so click on bpftrace, click on URL, select the default URL and click 7 test. Once that is done, now I can go to manage, and now I can select either one of them. Let's just select this one. Okay, so it is still not working. Let's just try the other one, bpftrace. Okay, so let's try to figure out why it is not working. System analyze. Let's just add the other one, other data source, which is vector, and let's see if we have the same problem. Okay, so let's go to the PuTTY again and install the package pcp pmda bcc. This is basically for the vector data source. And this is pretty quick. Let's go to the same location that we went for bpftrace, and inside this we have something called bcc and one binary for install. Let's just run that. Okay, so now it got installed. Let's just restart the proxy service and the Grafana service, and try to access. Excellent. So now let's go to the web browser. Okay, so the first thing what we have to do is to add the data source for vector. So let's just add the data source, which is this one, and select the default data source here and 7 test. It seems working. And now if I go to manage, and there are two, one is for the container overview, one is the host overview. Let's click on the host overview. Okay, so for vector it seems it is working. I can see some of the graph here and click on changing the time interval, and I can see the data is now feeding into a vector dashboard. Excellent. So for vector it is working, but for some reason I'm not sure for okay, now trace is working. I thought it is not working, but it is slowly feeding the data. There was some issue, it seems. I don't know what was it, but looks like now it is working. So it is loading, you can see here. Let's just wait for some time, and meanwhile, while this is loading, I can go to the Redis data source, which is this one, and click on the other nodes, and now we can see those data for other node as well, right? So change the interval to 5 seconds, and there are many things you can be able to do with the Grafana. One thing you need to make a note that in PCP Redis data source you would be able to add multiple nodes, but other data source like the bpftrace and the vector, you wouldn't be able to do it. That would be only dedicated for one node. Okay, so the PCP would be the ideal one you are going to use, right? So let's now go ahead and see the host overview for the vector. So this is the data. I can see here first one is for CPU, load average, memory, disk utilization, and so many stuff. Like we can see the performance information for my system. Alright, so that's how you would going to add additional data source in the Grafana. There are so many things we can do. You can just play around with the other stuff, like you can create the dashboard, you can import an additional dashboard from grafana.lab site, right? And you can create query. If you just click on this option, let's just discard this, and you can see the query, and you can enable query as per your requirement. You can enable alerting. There's so many stuff we can do with the Grafana. Okay, so for now, for this video I was supposed to show you three things. The first thing was about to add two client nodes in the metrics server, and from there we just saw how to capture the performance metrics. And I also add two additional data source, vector and bpftrace. With that also we can see like how to capture the performance data. So that's it for this video. If you would like to see more videos on Grafana, just let me know. I would going to prepare the videos on them. Okay, for this one, that's it. Thank you so much for watching my video. Have a good day.